Hey everyone, I'm finally back. Sorry for the bit of a break I had to take there. I actually kind of jacked up my back and I couldn't sit down for long periods of time and read all about the Twitter drama going on in the FGC. But speaking of breaks and broken contracts and eSports and Twitter, I'm sure you've seen over the past week that there's been a meltdown at Illusion. It's an eSports team that Cherry Berry Mango was actually a part of. He's a Tekken player, free agent now, so make sure to sign him. Tekken World Tour just got announced. That's the kind of player that you want on your team. But anyway, Cherry Berry Mango did a longer tweet that I'll actually link to in the description and kind of explain the situation. So basically, his sponsor said that Cherry Berry Mango should go ahead and pay for his travel to go to different tournaments like EVO and CEO and all these different events. And basically, they said they'd reimburse him after the events. So when he went to go ask to get reimbursed, and I'm just kind of summarizing here, the sponsor said, okay, well, we're having problems with one of our sponsors, so we can't pay you. Maybe we can pay you $500 a week until you're paid back. So Cherry Berry Mango said yes. Then he got asked for some of his prize winnings, and then he asked for his money again. The sponsor said, we'll only give you the money if you bash the former CEO that just got fired. Really, Illusion's Twitter has been lots of entertainment over the past week. So unfortunately, the history of the FGC is riddled with tons of stories of shady sponsors and bad deals. In fact, that's why they call it Blow Up Tuesdays, because usually someone just lost some money or someone got robbed or something crazy happened. And it always seems to happen where we find out about it on a Tuesday. So for this video, I wanted to talk about some of the infamous sponsors in FGC past. Now, all of these sponsors and these things that happen, these are not necessarily someone losing money or someone being screwed. It's also sponsors that have kind of changed the way the FGC landscape has been and how things are done and how people deal with. Also, I don't want to paint a picture that it's just nothing but endless bad sponsors out there in the FGC. In fact, especially in the last couple of years, there's been some really solid sponsors. Not going to name them all because there's someone I'm going to forget and they'll probably get angry. But there's more good sponsors now in the FGC, legitimate businesses that know what they're doing, than there was in 2009, 2010. So speaking of the early years of the FGC's resurgence, this is around the time when Street Fighter IV came out. During those first couple years, it seemed like every tournament and homegrown team was sponsored by Mad Catz. And this was likely due to the success of the Tournament Edition Fight Stick, along with Markman being really passionate about the community. And there was a lot of community members that worked at Mad Catz that really wanted to support events. So it took a couple years, but the competition finally decided to get involved as well. So around the time of Revelations, the first one, this is one of the more infamous FGC tournaments, Hori actually announced that they were going to be sponsoring the team. There was already that Team Mad Catz, with Daigo and some other players. And Team Hori was going to be Sako, who was the legend at the time. And then Andy OCR, Warak, and Tatsu. Those three were actually some pretty popular SoCal players at the time. And they got their own custom fight sticks, and they were going to attend a bunch of events around the world, just like Team Mad Catz. So they were going to go to Shadaloo Showdown. In fact, the Shadaloo Showdown squad actually made the whole announcement trailer for Team Hori. And they were going to go to EVO, but they were really going to debut at Revelations. So unsurprisingly, along with a lot of other things at Revelations, the team did show up there, but then they kind of faded off and never made it out to Shadaloo Showdown, and the team kind of quietly dropped the Hori sponsor tag. So after the second Revelations and Tournament Legacy kind of just imploded and disappeared, there was a lengthy SRK thread that went over all the kind of shady things that happened around Tournament Legacy and John Nelson. And Andy OCR actually posted and talked about what happened behind the scenes with Team Hori. And basically, they were given like a hastily written contract, and then they were told that they needed to promote the event, they needed to create Twitter accounts and just constantly hype up Revelations. And long story short, basically Team Hori was actually Team Tournament Legacy, which had licensed the Hori name to have a team to promote their Revelations event. And Tournament Legacy was supposed to be the one doing all the marketing and stuff. And this isn't really unheard of. A lot of times brands, they'll pay marketing agencies to represent them, put them out there. If you think about it, most esports teams are just big marketing agencies for different brands and their own brand themselves that they create. The problem is that when you represent a brand and you just want that sweet money from the brand and you don't care about the community or the people that you're bringing on to work with, things tend to go sour pretty quickly. So how did this affect things in the long run? Well, thankfully, it didn't do too much damage. There's more product sponsors than ever in the FGC. There's Astro, Razer, Vitrix, 8Arc, so many more that are getting involved in sponsoring players directly or teams. And what about the people affected by being on Team Hori? Well, for Sako, he still works with Hori and still uses their products and promotes them. And for Andy OCR, he continued to be a top player. In fact, he actually just won Samurai Showdown at East Coast Throwdown. So the FGC is kind of like a broken record at this point in that it always complains about not having enough money in the scene, not having enough sponsorships. But the FGC is also kind of unique and creative with the sponsorships that it does find. So aside from the usual stuff like energy drinks and t-shirt companies and fight stick manufacturers, it also finds kind of funny sponsorships. Like it seemed for a while there that the FGC was completely sponsored by bead art and vape companies. But what happens when the FGC finds a source of money that it really doesn't want? So the funny thing about the FGC is it seems to stumble upon sponsorships on Twitter, and one sponsorship that almost seemed to start as like a joke and then became a reality was when Browser said that it would work with Long Island Joe to sponsor a series of events and players. Now, nothing really happened out of that, but another adult website actually was serious, and YouPorn actually started Team YP, and Team YP actually signed Filipino Man and Valmaster to events. It quickly ran into problems though, as events like the Capcom Pro Tour said that they would not use that sponsor handle on the stream, and also that any jerseys that they wore needed to be, definitely not showing any type of YouPorn branding. In fact, YouPorn actually ran into outright bans in other esports with the teams that they sponsored. Now, I've always thought it was funny that the FGC would not want this potential influx of revenue and money to spend on building events. And it's also kind of avoided any type of other adult products like alcohol sponsorships or cigarette sponsorships. But I bet if you look at the demographics of any type of FGC creator or content creator, you'll probably see that it's 90 to 95% male, 18 to 35, and those are the kind of products they're gonna buy. I can only speak from experience, but monetizing in the FGC is definitely a challenge. They're not gonna just buy anything really. So if there's something that you're pretty confident that they're gonna buy, then definitely bring that in as a sponsor so that they can continue being a sponsor. But I get it. You want the FGC to be family friendly because there's a lot more opportunities in the long run if everyone can be involved rather than just a bunch of dirty old men. But having said that, one of the first Street Fighter tournaments that had a huge payout was in a strip club. So it used to be an annual tradition during EVO, and it probably still kind of is now, but some top player would tweet out a GoFundMe link to fund their trip to EVO, even though they had the whole year to prep for the event. Nowadays, it seems like during a Capcom Cup or a Tekken World Tour or even EVO still, some sponsor signs a top player or someone who qualified, and they go to the event, and if they don't win at the event, they quietly drop the player. But there was a point of time when there was actually a democratic process within the community to fund different players to go out to events. So our Kappa basically has a bad relationship with the FGC. It became a hub for what we lovingly call stream monsters to talk about all the drama in the FGC and shitpost memes. But for a period of time, it decided that it would crowdfund players to go out to events. And the way this worked is that it would nominate players, players would then get votes, and whoever won the overall nomination would then have a shirt designed. People would buy the shirt and that would be used to fund the player to go out to events. And this actually sponsored a lot of high profile players. Punko, Kazunoko, Nemo all got R-Kappa sponsorships. In fact, I think the ace of the team was Pepe Day, which he went out to a lot of events under the R-Kappa sponsorship. So what happened to this sponsorship program? Well, like most things built on trolling, the community kind of imploded on itself. There was changes in moderators and different rules that caused the community to splinter into different subgroups. And basically, the sponsorships didn't continue into the Street Fighter V era. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, there's a lot of good sponsorships in the FGC, and finding a sponsor shouldn't be such a complicated task. It really comes down to what the sponsor wants and what the player needs. And what the player needs is a means to reduce the financial burden it takes to being a pro gamer. And at a base level, for a base level sponsorship, the sponsor should be taking care of all the expenses it takes to get to events. So this is travel expenses, hotel expenses, food. The sponsor shouldn't be touching your prize money, and the sponsor should be giving you the product or the means to actually compete with. Now, if you're a player that's right at that top level almost, you're getting top 8, top 16 consistently, and you feel that if you had the more time to practice and focus on your gameplay, you'll be first place, top tier, no matter what. Then you can tell your sponsor, hey, give me a salary so I don't have to work as much. I can work more on my gameplay and I'll be the top player in the world. So what do sponsors want? Well, sponsors want access, they want impressions. And when I say access, I mean a potential audience that will see and buy their products. And how do you build that audience? Well, you build it with your social media, with your streams, with your YouTube videos. Every once in a while, take a look at your analytics, look at your audience, look at, is it 18 to 35? Do they make $60,000 a year? Those are the kind of people that sponsors want to show their product to because they'll buy it. Put that together in a deck, put those stats together and sell yourself. Reach out to someone and ask Astro, can I have a free headset? I'm gonna do a Gleam IO giveaway. Do that giveaway, take the stats, show your reach, show your impressions. In fact, I talked a lot about sponsorship with Markman, so you can check out that video. It's got a lot of good information in it. So the one thing to take away from this video is that if you've been lucky enough to nab that sponsorship deal, make sure to have Ultra David review your contract. And no, this video has not been sponsored by DPG at Law. Link in the description. So I want to ask you now, what kind of sponsorships do you think the FGC should go for? Have you ever worked with a sponsor or tried to get one before? And how long overdue is that Morton sponsorship? Anyway, if this video was helpful or entertaining to you, make sure to give it a like. And if you want to give me a token sponsorship, hit that subscription button and catch you on the next one.